The following content is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. No edits, no filters, just the raw truth, straight from inside the courtroom. Federal Court, New York City. One of the most pivotal moments in the federal criminal trial of Sean Diddy Combs unfolded as the prosecution introduced a key witness, Frank Piazza, a digital forensic analyst. Piazza was called to present and explain a compilation video, which the government considers a cornerstone of its case. The video, lasting approximately 11 minutes and 30 seconds, includes hotel surveillance footage and cell phone recordings that capture the alleged assault by Sean Combs against his former partner, Cassie Ventura, in 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel. According to Piazza's testimony, the video was carefully constructed to give the jury a chronological account of the incident, using footage from multiple security cameras and cell phone recordings made by Israel Flores, who at the time worked in security at the hotel and is now a member of the LAPD. Content of the video. The first segment of the video shows Cassie walking down a hotel hallway with a black bag. Several different angles then show her progression through the corridor. After roughly 20 seconds, Combs appears running after her. What follows is a series of disturbing events. Diddy is seen kicking, punching, and dragging Cassie in front of the elevator area. He grabs her belongings. He throws a vase at her. He takes her cell phone, and when she attempts to use a wall phone, he re-emerges to confront her again. The footage was muted. No audio is available. Piazza noted that the video system at the hotel was motion-activated and did not record sound. Piazza also explained that black frames were intentionally added between transitions to distinguish between different camera angles, as the defense had objected to presenting the video as one seamless piece. The black transitions were a compromise to clarify that multiple sources were being used without implying continuity editing. Cell phone footage from security officer part of the compilation included cell phone footage taken by Officer Israel Flores, who filmed a monitor playing the hotel's native surveillance system. This provided a secondary perspective and served to reinforce the authenticity of the hotel footage. At one point in the video, Diddy is seen grabbing Cassie's phone again, and the footage concludes with him walking down the hallway, putting the phone to his ear. Reactions and legal objections. The courtroom remained intensely focused throughout the video presentation. Observers noted that Combs appeared largely emotionless while the footage played, but closely watched the screen during key sequences, particularly the assault near the elevator. According to courtroom reporters, Combs occasionally looked away or toward the witness stand, but locked eyes on the screen as the video revisited more graphic moments. There were significant legal objections raised by the defense before Piazza took the stand. The defense team challenged the admissibility of the compilation video, arguing that it might influence the jury's perception due to how it was edited and framed. In cross-examination, Tenny Garagos, representing Combs, focused on chain of custody concerns, questioning how the video came into government possession and the accuracy of timestamps that reportedly jumped forward without explanation. Piazza clarified that such inconsistencies were normal in motion-activated surveillance systems, which may skip frames when minimal motion is detected. Additional evidence. Sexually explicit videos. Perhaps more concerning was Piazza's confirmation that he had also analyzed several sexually explicit videos, widely referred to in the case as freak-off videos. These videos were not shown to the jury, but the prosecution and defense stipulated their existence. Piazza testified that these videos were stored on devices linked to Combs and dated between October 2012 and December 2014. He further explained that his forensic analysis included enhancing the audio, though the content of the recordings was not discussed in detail during this portion of the trial. The purpose of mentioning the videos, according to prosecutors, was to establish a pattern of behavior and to demonstrate that the recordings were authentic and accurately documented what occurred. Summary of impact. The video compilation played in court marked a major milestone in the prosecution's efforts to establish Sean Combs as a perpetrator of consistent, systematic abuse. Combined with forthcoming testimonies from alleged victims and former associates, the surveillance footage and forensic analysis from Piazza are expected to play a central role in the jury's deliberation. The trial continues with growing anticipation as additional witnesses, some under immunity orders, prepare to testify. Testimony from Briana Bangolan, balcony incident and drug admissions under immunity, New York, federal court. The second major development in Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial came with the testimony of Briana Bangolan, a woman who has both filed a civil lawsuit against Combs and now testified under immunity in the criminal case. Her appearance on the witness stand added significant weight to the prosecution's ongoing narrative of abuse, drug distribution, and coercion. Briana's testimony confirmed and expanded upon prior allegations, including a violent encounter in 2016, where she claims Combs held her over the edge of a 17th-floor balcony during a private gathering. "He told me, 'I'm the devil. I can kill you,'" Bangolan stated in open court, adding that she suffered bruises and back pain as a result of the incident. Fifth Amendment and immunity order. Before taking the stand, Bangolan initially signaled her intent to invoke the Fifth Amendment, her constitutional right against self-incrimination. However, she ultimately testified under an immunity agreement, which protects her from prosecution based on the contents of her testimony. Legal analysts believe the immunity was essential due to Bangolan's direct involvement in drug-related activity, a key component of the prosecution's larger racketeering case against Combs. According to her testimony, Bangolan admitted to providing and selling drugs to both Cassie Ventura and Sean Combs, including oxycodone, ketamine, and cocaine. Receiving drugs from Combs himself, including ecstasy, cocaine, ketamine, and the date rape drug GHB. She also testified that she had never used GHB until it was introduced to her by Combs. Connection to racketeering, RICO charges. Prosecutors are leveraging Bangolan's testimony to establish a pattern of conduct and conspiracy aligning with federal RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, charges. According to the indictment, Combs is alleged to have used his businesses, associates, and personal network to perpetuate criminal activity including drug trafficking, sexual exploitation, and witness intimidation. Legal commentators emphasize that Bangolan's statements are critical because they corroborate other witness testimonies, including Cassie's allegations of prolonged abuse. They illustrate a pattern of drug-facilitated control at events known as freak-offs. They reveal possible coordination between Combs and associates in maintaining a criminal enterprise. During her testimony, Bangolan also recounted direct threats from Combs and described the culture of fear that surrounded him. There were parties, drugs, and women. And there were rules. Unspoken, but clear, she said. Cross-examination and defense strategy. During cross-examination, defense attorney Tenny Garagos attempted to question Bangolan's credibility by suggesting she may have financial motives for testifying, implying she might be seeking media deals or settlement payouts. "You've never tried to profit off your story? No interviews, no book deals?" Garagos asked. "No," Bangolan responded firmly. "I came here because I was afraid I wouldn't live to tell the truth later." The defense also hinted that Bangolan's history of drug use and participation in the alleged events might complicate her reliability as a witness. However, the prosecution has made it clear that her testimony is part of a broader effort to demonstrate Combs' pattern of behavior, not to present Bangolan as an uninvolved third party. Courtroom dynamics and reactions observers in the courtroom noted that Sean Combs watched Bangolan intently as she testified, particularly when she walked into the room and approached the stand. This marked a shift from his otherwise stoic demeanor earlier in the day. Jury reactions reportedly ranged from intense note-taking to visible emotional responses, particularly when Bangolan recounted being dangled over a balcony and when she described her introduction to GHB. Meanwhile, journalists and analysts outside the courthouse emphasized that Bangolan's immunity deal suggests prosecutors believe her testimony is critical to linking Combs to criminal conspiracy beyond isolated abuse allegations. Upcoming testimony and broader context. According to court sources, Bangolan is expected to remain on the stand for further direct questioning and possible follow-up cross-examination. Her testimony appears to open the door to additional witnesses from within Combs' inner circle, particularly individuals connected to past parties, drug events, or hotel incidents. The trial continues to attract significant public and media attention, especially as allegations begin to intersect between civil claims, criminal activity, and enterprise-level operations allegedly run through Combs' professional entities. Bangolan's statement that Combs was the devil and capable of anything is already being replayed across media outlets as a defining moment in the trial's second phase. Forensic expert confirms authenticity of freak-off videos and identifies Diddy's voice, New York, federal court. In a continued effort to build its racketeering and abuse case against Sean Diddy Combs, the federal prosecution recalled digital forensic expert Frank Piazza to the stand. While his earlier testimony focused on surveillance footage from the Intercontinental Hotel, this round centered on a more disturbing body of evidence: sexually explicit videos, colloquially referred to as freak-off videos. Piazza's testimony, though highly technical, revealed chilling implications about the extent of Combs' alleged activities, the nature of these recordings, and the voice evidence extracted from them. Nature and origin of the videos. Piazza testified that he had reviewed multiple digital files, some of which were encrypted and stored on cloud accounts and devices connected to Combs' business infrastructure. The videos, according to court records, were recorded on various dates between 2012 and 2014, with file timestamps supporting that timeline. The videos were sexually explicit, Piazza explained. They showed multiple individuals, sometimes unresponsive or passive, in controlled indoor settings. In several cases, the rooms featured blacked-out windows and what appeared to be soundproofing equipment. When asked to define controlled, Piazza specified that individuals in the videos seemed to be directed in their behavior, and that cameras appeared to be deliberately positioned in the rooms ahead of time, indicating premeditation. Audio enhancement and voice identification. One of Piazza's key roles was enhancing and isolating audio in videos where voices were otherwise obscured. He told the court that he was able to clarify soundtracks using audio reconstruction techniques. "Were you able to identify any of the voices?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes," Piazza responded. "In several videos, the voice of Sean Combs was clearly distinguishable." "And what was the nature of his speech?" "Instructional, directing participants, giving commands." While the jury did not hear these recordings directly, Piazza's expert opinion was admitted into the record. Prosecutors argued that this confirmed Combs' active role in the production of the videos and his participation in what they describe as a ritualized system of sexual control. Encrypted storage and business links. Piazza revealed that many of the videos were stored in encrypted folders and, in several instances, under aliases or generic file names. He further testified that some files were synced to cloud accounts linked to business entities controlled by Combs. This detail was pivotal, as it served the prosecution's attempt to tie Combs' criminal actions to his corporate infrastructure, a critical component in proving RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, violations. "These weren't stored on a personal hard drive alone," said Assistant U.S. Attorney Marie Delgado. These were preserved on systems tied to his business operations. Analysts note that this move helps the government argue that Combs used his enterprises not only as fronts for revenue, but also as protection and digital vaults for criminal behavior. Cross-examination. Defense targets. Interpretation. Under cross-examination, defense attorney Tenny Garagos sought to undermine the impact of Piazza's testimony by challenging his qualifications as a behavioral analyst. "You're not a psychologist or psychiatrist?" "No," Piazza responded. "So you can't actually speak to whether the individuals in those videos were consenting?" "Correct. I can only speak to what was captured and what was audible." Garagos also attempted to suggest that gaps in timestamp metadata and the lack of real-time context made the videos ambiguous, but Piazza pushed back, stating that file structures and technical markers confirmed authenticity and sequencing. Furthermore, Piazza emphasized that none of the video or audio evidence appeared to be digitally altered, reinforcing the credibility of the material. Legal implications. Strengthening the RICO argument. Legal experts observing the case believe Piazza's testimony significantly strengthens the prosecution's effort to paint Combs not merely as an abuser, but as the orchestrator of a criminal enterprise. By placing Combs at the center of the recording, storage, and curation of these videos, particularly with clear voice identification, the government has now introduced evidence suggesting premeditation and digital organization, use of business infrastructure to facilitate criminal acts, documentation of coercive behavior for potential leverage. Defense response, framing versus enterprise. Defense attorneys, including Tenny Garagos, have emphasized the idea that the case is being inflated beyond its actual scope. They argue the relationships were private and consensual. Any payments or NDAs were standard for celebrities attempting to maintain privacy. No co-defendants have been charged, which weakens the claim of a broader enterprise. This is being presented as a criminal empire when, in fact, it's messy human behavior painted in the worst possible light, Garagos said during proceedings. However, former prosecutors note that RICO charges do not require multiple defendants. A single individual can be charged if prosecutors can show that they managed a pattern of predicate crimes with others, even if those others are cooperating witnesses. Financial exposure and future testimonies. Experts also pointed out that if convicted under RICO, Combs could face asset forfeiture, including seizure of properties, vehicles, and business holdings if they were used or obtained through illicit means. "This case isn't just about prison time," said former federal prosecutor William Corman. "It's about dismantling the system that allowed these alleged abuses to persist, and that includes financial structures." Several more witnesses are expected to testify, including individuals with inside knowledge of Combs' security, legal, and artist management teams. Analysts believe these testimonies could either reinforce or challenge the government's narrative that Combs built a culture of silence and submission within his brand. Public and legal impact. With media outlets reporting extensively on daily developments, public interest in the trial has remained high. The federal court has already seen record attendance for this case, with multiple global outlets following live feeds and transcripts. Despite Combs maintaining his plea of not guilty, the weight of evidence, ranging from surveillance videos and financial documents to voice-enhanced recordings and immunized testimony, appears to be shifting the courtroom momentum. The trial continues next week with testimony expected from former Inner Circle staff members, including one high-profile assistant who allegedly managed party logistics for Combs across 3 states. "This moves the case beyond he said, she said into data-confirmed conduct," said trial analyst and former prosecutor Julie Harper. "That matters enormously in a federal courtroom. Jury reaction and courtroom atmosphere. While the videos themselves were not played in court, the jury paid close attention during Piazza's audio descriptions. Some were seen taking detailed notes when Piazza described Combs's voice giving instructions. The atmosphere was described as tense and somber, especially as the nature of the videos was outlined. Court observers noted that Combs remained composed, though he appeared more engaged when his name was linked to direct audio commands. Conclusion: the evidence is building. With forensic evidence now reinforcing allegations of long-term abuse, coercion, and digital manipulation, the prosecution has taken a major step forward in demonstrating a pattern of behavior fitting RICO definitions. The trial resumes tomorrow with more witness testimony expected, possibly from individuals involved in either the alleged videos or other parts of the enterprise. Public interest in the case remains high, and legal analysts believe this portion of the trial may be the turning point. Immunity deals, threat allegations, and the expanding criminal enterprise New York federal court. As the racketeering and abuse trial of Sean Diddy Combs enters its most intense phase, prosecutors introduced new evidence and testimony aimed at exposing a deeper network of alleged criminal conduct. Central to this strategy are a series of immunity agreements granted to witnesses who claim to have been both victims and participants in Combs' alleged enterprise. These agreements, legally binding protections shielding witnesses from self-incrimination, signal how entrenched and multifaceted the alleged operations were, with former employees, friends, and associates now testifying against the music mogul under oath. Immunity strategy. Building the enterprise case. The U.S. government has focused heavily on demonstrating that Combs's conduct goes beyond isolated incidents of abuse and instead forms part of a pattern of organized criminal activity under the scope of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO. To do so, prosecutors have relied on witnesses like Briana Bangolan, who, despite her own admitted involvement in drug activity, has been granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. This wasn't just about parties or relationships, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Marie Delgado during a sidebar. We're talking about a controlled environment built on intimidation, coercion, and systemic silence. Bangolan is one of several individuals who prosecutors say were instrumental in enabling Combs's behavior, yet also victims themselves, caught in what they describe as a closed-loop system of fear and dependency. New allegations of threats and control. In testimony that followed the forensic revelations of the previous day, witnesses under immunity detailed multiple incidents of psychological and physical threats allegedly made by Combs. Among the most disturbing claims, Combs allegedly told Bangolan, "I'm the devil. I can kill you," during an altercation in 2016. Witnesses described being isolated, drugged, and instructed not to speak about what happened during private gatherings, some of which were filmed. Some women testified they were warned never to contact law enforcement and were paid or signed non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, to remain silent. Court documents indicate that at least 3 of these NDAs were drawn up through Combs' business entities, a detail that prosecutors argue is crucial to establishing RICO activity. When legal documents are used as tools of suppression, especially under corporate names, it shows intent, said legal analyst Misty Maris. It links personal misconduct to enterprise-level strategy. Corporate infrastructure and witness management prosecutors argue that Combs used his business resources, staff, money, lawyers, and logistics teams to manage both victims and witnesses. One witness testified that assistants were instructed to book rooms, supply narcotics, and facilitate travel for women involved in what the government has termed sexual coercion operations. While defense attorneys have pushed back, calling these accusations speculative and sensationalized, the prosecution continues to bolster its argument with internal communication records, financial documents, and witness corroboration. One key revelation involved a security guard who signed an NDA after accepting a $100,000 payment to suppress hotel surveillance footage. According to testimony, the NDA included a carve-out allowing disclosure to the government, something the defense argued proves there was no obstruction. However, prosecutors contend that the intent behind the payment and the circumstances under which the NDA was signed are highly suspicious. Inside the courtroom, jury reactions, Diddy's demeanor, and strategic shifts in trial narrative New York federal court. As the criminal trial of Sean "Diddy" Combs enters its final stretch, attention has shifted not just to the witnesses and evidence, but to the reactions inside the courtroom. From the jurors' growing attentiveness to Combs's subtle shifts in behavior, legal analysts suggest that the tone of the courtroom may reveal as much about the trial's trajectory as the evidence itself. Over several days of grueling testimony, including harrowing witness accounts, forensic video analysis, and testimony under immunity, the jury's engagement level has intensified. According to multiple reporters in the room, jurors are now watching every frame, taking copious notes, and reacting visibly to certain evidence. Jury behavior, from passive to intently engaged. In the early days of the trial, some jurors appeared quiet and restrained, glancing occasionally at witnesses but rarely reacting. That dynamic changed significantly during the presentation of the hotel surveillance compilation video and the detailed testimony of Briana Bangolan. During Frank Piazza's walkthrough of the 11-minute hotel video showing Diddy allegedly assaulting Cassie Ventura, jurors leaned forward, scrutinizing every movement on the screen. Many were observed watching Diddy directly during video playback, noting his reactions or lack thereof. Later, when Piazza described hearing Diddy's voice giving explicit instructions in the freak-off videos, several jurors looked visibly disturbed, with one juror reportedly placing her pen down and staring into the distance as details were read into the record. "The jury is locked in," said courtroom journalist Elizabeth Milner. "They aren't just present, they're emotionally present now. That's significant." Sean Combs's behavior. Stillness, surveillance, and stares. For his part, Sean "Diddy" Combs has maintained a largely stoic exterior, dressed immaculately in dark suits, seated with his attorneys. However, his courtroom behavior has subtly evolved as witness testimony has become more pointed. During the playback of the surveillance video, Combs initially avoided looking at the screen, focusing instead on the witness stand or the judge. As the video progressed to more graphic sections, particularly when his alleged assault of Cassie was shown, he began to look up, watching intently and focusing on the timestamps. Courtroom observers interpret this as a calculated effort to appear analytical rather than emotional, a possible legal tactic to avoid appearing guilty or remorseful. During Bangolan's testimony, in which she alleged that Combs held her over a balcony, he turned his head fully to watch her enter the room, following her visually to the witness stand. He continued to watch her throughout, showing no visible reaction to her statements, even when she described being introduced to drugs like GHB by Combs himself. Strategic shifts. Defense adapts to prosecution momentum. Legal experts believe the defense team has subtly shifted strategy in response to the prosecution's growing momentum. Initially focused on privacy arguments and NDA legitimacy, the defense now appears more focused on minimizing criminal intent and reframing behaviors as celebrity lifestyle dynamics. In cross-examination of witnesses, defense attorney Tenny Garagos has repeatedly questioned witnesses' financial motives, suggesting possible book deals or media appearances, highlighted consensual aspects of relationships or drug use, pointed to standard NDA clauses that allow disclosure to law enforcement, challenging the obstruction narrative. However, the effectiveness of this strategy remains uncertain, particularly as jurors now have hours of video footage, forensic testimony, and witness accounts pointing to systemic abuse and enterprise-level coordination. Analysts, Juror perception. Now central to outcome, legal analysts note that juror psychology may now play a more important role than even upcoming evidence. The emotional weight of the testimony, including allegations of physical violence, sexual coercion, and manipulation, could strongly influence perception, even if technical gaps remain. This trial isn't just about proving charges, it's about shaping a narrative, said defense analyst Sappa Robinson-Ferrer. And the prosecution has been relentless in portraying Combs not just as abusive, but as an orchestrator of a pattern of abuse. If jurors begin to see witnesses like Bangolan not as co-conspirators but as coerced survivors, the RICO framework becomes more compelling. Upcoming testimony and final phase preview. The prosecution has indicated plans to call at least 2 more witnesses, one believed to be a former logistics assistant and another a medical professional who may testify about drug effects or injuries linked to past incidents. The court is also expected to review financial records, internal communications, and possible statements made by Combs in past interviews or depositions. These may be introduced during closing arguments, which could begin within the next week. Meanwhile, closing public attention remains focused on how Combs will respond if called to testify, though experts say it's highly unlikely due to the risk of cross-examination and self-incrimination. Conclusion. A tense, watched courtroom. With each day of trial, the courtroom atmosphere has grown more electric and heavy. Journalists report that public attendance has reached capacity and live stream updates are followed globally. Combs' expression remains carefully measured, but the momentum appears to be leaning against him. One veteran court reporter summed it up. In trials like these, silence speaks. And right now, the jury is watching everything, even what he doesn't say. Closing momentum. Prosecutors frame Diddy as architect of abuse, Enterprise, New York, federal court. As federal prosecutors near the close of their case against Sean Diddy Combs, they have begun weaving together a detailed and disturbing narrative that Combs operated not as a celebrity with personal issues, but as the head of a long-standing criminal enterprise built on intimidation, abuse, and strategic silence. With multiple witnesses, forensic analysts, and financial investigators now heard, the prosecution is preparing to deliver its closing argument in the coming days, with emphasis on RICO violations and a pattern of coercive control targeting women, employees, and even law enforcement. Key prosecutorial themes. The government's case has rested on several interconnected pillars. Physical abuse. Surveillance video showed Combs allegedly assaulting Cassie Ventura at the Intercontinental Hotel in 2016. Sexual coercion. Witnesses and forensic testimony confirmed the existence of freak-off videos in which women were directed and recorded, often under the influence of drugs. Drug distribution. Witnesses under immunity admitted to supplying narcotics to Combs and receiving drugs from him in return. Enterprise structure. Business entities, staff, and resources were allegedly used to arrange, conceal, and protect the operations. This was not chaos, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Marie Delgado. This was a system, built, refined, and hidden in plain sight. Prosecutors argue that this organized pattern is precisely what constitutes racketeering, where the enterprise, in this case, Combs' brand and businesses, was allegedly used to facilitate multiple predicate crimes, including assault, sex trafficking, and drug offenses. Last-minute evidence, financial records, and internal memos. In one of the final moves before closing, prosecutors introduced internal financial documents showing cash withdrawals, payments to hotel security staff, and expense reports that aligned with the dates of alleged incidents. One document, marked Urgent Expense Transfer, was tied to the $100,000 reportedly used to obtain hotel surveillance footage. Though the defense insisted this was a privacy-driven NDA exchange, the government maintains it was a cover-up attempt. Also submitted were email correspondences between executive assistants referencing overnight arrangements, party girls, and pre-approved scripts for events. Details prosecutors say illustrate conscious coordination behind Combs' private gatherings. Defense rebuttal. This is lifestyle, not crime. The defense team, led by attorney Tenny Garagos, is preparing to argue that the government's case is based on exaggeration, claiming it reinterprets the excesses of celebrity culture as criminal acts. We're talking about private behavior twisted through the lens of public judgment, Garagos said outside court. There is no conspiracy. There is no enterprise. There is just Sean Combs, imperfect, but not a criminal. The defense is also expected to revisit the consensual nature of many relationships presented in testimony and to argue that no credible evidence exists proving Combs directed others to commit crimes on his behalf. Still, the weight of video, digital footprints, and multiple immunized witnesses may make this defense an uphill battle. What happens next? The court is expected to move into closing arguments within days. Each side will summarize their case for the jury, with prosecutors reiterating that Combs was not merely involved in these events, but orchestrated them. After closings, the jury will enter deliberation. Due to the complexity of RICO charges, deliberations could take several days, as jurors must assess whether the crimes alleged qualify as predicate offenses, whether an enterprise was used to facilitate those crimes, whether Combs knowingly and actively participated in that enterprise. Legal experts believe the outcome could set a precedent for how celebrity power structures are prosecuted under federal enterprise laws. This is not just a trial about a man, said legal analyst Misty Maris. It's a trial about a system, about what happens when influence becomes infrastructure for abuse. Public response and media coverage. Outside the courthouse, public opinion is divided but rapidly intensifying. Activist groups, former collaborators, and fans have all voiced contrasting takes, with some rallying behind alleged victims and others questioning the fairness of the case. Online, hashtags like Diddy trial, silence is not peace, and RICO reckoning continue to trend as daily testimony garners global headlines. Streaming platforms and documentary crews are reportedly tracking developments for future releases. Meanwhile, Combs has remained silent in court, choosing not to testify in his own defense, a decision widely seen as strategic to avoid cross-examination. Final notes: a trial that redefined celebrity prosecution. This trial has become more than a courtroom proceeding. It has evolved into a cultural reckoning. Federal prosecutors believe they have unmasked a hidden empire and that the pattern of abuse, secrecy, and systemic protection is no longer tolerable under the law. As the judge prepares jury instructions, all eyes now turn to the 12 men and women who will decide the fate of one of the most powerful names in entertainment. The verdict, when it comes, will not only determine Sean Combs' future, but could redefine how justice is applied to celebrity power in America.